Hello and welcome back to the Audible Finish, where we discuss the week gone by in the world of wrestling. I'm your host, Dimitri Kalos, and alongside me, as always, is my esteemed co-host, Thanasi. Hello, Thanasi.
Salutations and peace. It's good to be here on another Road to WrestleMania podcast.
Well, we cannot fault WWE for making things boring on the road to WrestleMania, as the Cody Rhodes Rock situation has truly created an endless amount of speculation as to what will happen at WrestleMania 40. At the time of recording, we should stress that we still do not know exactly what is going on, but we definitely have thoughts that we would like to share. Later on, we will get into the spirit of the Elimination Chamber season with both a quiz and a list of our top 5 favorite Elimination Chamber matches of all time. We'll close this week's episode with a tier ranking of every Roman Reigns WrestleMania main event in anticipation of what we expect will be another year of the Tribal Chief closing out this year's showcase of the Immortals. If you are enjoying the podcast and have a moment, please like, share, and subscribe. Well, Thanasi, on that note, let's dive straight into the biggest news item in the last week of wrestling, and that is this Cody Rhodes Rock situation. Now, we should add a little bit of context. Just when we all thought Cody Rhodes would officially challenge Roman Reigns at WrestleMania for the WWE Universal Championship, a spanner was thrown in the works, and it seems that The Rock may have taken his spot against Roman Reigns for this year's WrestleMania. And Thanasi, I think it's fair to say that it's caused a wee bit of a reaction out of the wrestling community.
Oh, well, I think that's an understatement to say the least, because within hours of this happening, I think I sent you a message because I saw a post on Facebook where someone said this has become one of the most disliked videos on YouTube on the WWE's channel. And as soon as I saw it, my first reaction was, first of all, I'm going to go into my YouTube app, put in my dislike as well, and then I sent it to you to say, what do you think of this statistic? Whether it's true or not.
Well, I can tell you right now, using this feature of the return dislike button extension on Chrome, I decided to have a look for myself to see if it works. And at least on my screen, it looks like it works. And as of right now, that video stands with 114,000 likes and 655,000 dislikes.
Woo! That's fabulous. That's really, really good to hear. I think this fan reaction. Can I know that I promised before we went on air that I would let you lead the discussion, and I will. But 10 years later, or basically even 11 years later, we have this absolute crap being laid upon us, right? And it is within the same 3 month period of CM Punk being back. Let that sink in. He left because of this crap, and it was all looking so hopeful right up until the day of the Royal Rumble when he was injured, knocked out, and then the night after, when, or actually, or 5 or 6 days after, when they brought in The Rock to be the heir apparent to the main event spot. Absolutely ridiculous. It's spitting in the face of fans, I would say.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I wish I could offer a counter to what you're saying, but I feel the same way. And actually, I think on as it pertains to us two, I think I'm probably more strongly against this purely because with the Royal Rumble, I was actually on board with Cody Rhodes winning. So things were going exactly as we had hoped. And now it just seems like it feels like for the fans to be fully satisfied that there needs to be a bit of a course correction. And narratively, that would just look awkward. Short of something ridiculous happening like the Bloodline beat down The Rock a week before and Cody has to step in as his replacement, it feels like there is no narratively completely safe way and linear way to make this all go that everyone's happy as well.
If I can use this visualization, right? Suppose that we're looking at a linear path, a road that begins at the Royal Rumble and ends up at WrestleMania. In that straight line for Cody, what it looks like is I win the Rumble, I declare my intentions to go against Roman Reigns, I fight him at WrestleMania. If we are still going to get to that endpoint, if we're going to try save it somehow, this is how it has to happen. First of all, they acknowledge that Cody made a mistake because, first of all, he pointed in Roman's direction after winning the Royal Rumble. So he called him out immediately. In the press conference later, said, I'm going against Roman. And then, at least within kayfabe, we have Seth Rollins trying to convince him otherwise. So that one has some kind of a kayfabe justification, even though it's a ridiculous idea. And then when he cuts his promo against Roman on SmackDown before the entry of The Rock, he says, Roman, I'm coming for you. I'm finishing the story by taking that championship, and he points to it and then says the words, just not at WrestleMania. So that literally, those words rule it out. So in order for them to course correct again, that road, that linear road that begins from the Royal Rumble and ends up at WrestleMania, now has this weird, unnecessary detour. Like when you make a mistake, like you exit the freeway at the wrong exit, and then you have to go through the back streets in order to re-enter the freeway, right? It's just an inefficient and a stupid way to drive.
Well,
So
we
over to
should
you.
we should add to this as well that this is just instant reaction, right? But there are other things that we should add, which is that we had a full episode of Monday Night Raw since this apparent decision was made, and it was very interesting because this was St. Louis, Missouri, I believe, is the and we saw the fans were bombarded with "We want Cody" signs, like all around. We saw them chanting "We want Cody" and "Rocky sucks." So it like the the live fans, at least in St. Louis, have added to this cause for Cody Rhodes to finish his story.
Can you imagine, right? This is St. Louis, Missouri. It's not known as a particularly massive raucous wrestling crowd. It is a wrestling crowd, but not raucous. Can you imagine if this was in Philadelphia, in Boston, in Chicago, New York, all these like northeastern areas that kind of have that domination instead of like the South, which sometimes I think they can convince them to get on board with like the babyface stuff. But I'm talking about like the smart mark crowds. Can you imagine what it's going to be like? I don't even know who's next on the tour, but it's going to be pretty bad. Can I add on this though? The We Want Cody signs, I personally think these were planted by the WWE. I don't think it was handed out by fans to each other. I actually think that it was planted by WWE. And I'm trying to figure out how the bloody hell does this make sense? If you're trying to book Roman versus The Rock, making it abundantly clear, all but actually saying it in as many words, and then you're putting out these signs, it's a bit ridiculous. I don't quite understand it.
I would like to add here, and this might seem like a tangent, but I promise it's not. I was very curious as to what would make fans turn on Seth Rollins again, because it's unfortunately been a repeated storyline in his career, which is he delights with his wrestling, fans get on board, and then eventually they just grow tired of him, and then he has to reinvent himself again. So I was wondering what would be the catalyst at this time. And it seems like the catalyst is trying to force the narrative of he and Cody makes the most sense at WrestleMania. Because he was on Raw, sort of building up further this idea of challenge me, face me, and let's have this match. And he said things that were correct, which is that he needs that match. He needs to beat Cody Rhodes to prove to himself that he actually is the best. That makes complete sense, and I actually buy into that. But the fans were having none of it. What do you think about that? That whole idea that they're still forcing a little bit this idea of Cody versus Seth?
If they had done it without the Rock, and it just seemed as if Seth Rollins is trying to do the convincing, then I think the fans would have felt it was lukewarm, but they wouldn't have outright booed it because they even got to the point where they were booing the title. I personally think that you can say anything you want to a wrestler. I think you can like go up until the point of using the F word, as long as you're not using like if you're not using bigotry or slurs. But don't boo the title because the title means a lot. But the fact that they were doing it shows the outrage of the fans. And to be quite honest, in any other universe, we would have been okay with them convincing with Seth convincing Cody because the package where they were saying, do you want to be Warrior? Do you want to be Sid? Do you want to be Hogan? Or do you want to be Dusty Rhodes? Do you want to be Ric Flair? Do you want to be Terry Funk Jr.? We were talking about this 7 days ago. I thought it was awesome because they're equating the lineage of this title to the lineage of the original WCW and the NWA lineage, right? Like I thought that was really, really cool. But the fans are turning on it because we know that Cody's being pushed aside. That's what this is a reaction to. It's not a reaction to Cody versus Seth. It's a reaction to Cody being replaced and taking this belt as a second best option.
I think it's even simpler. It's not even that they don't like the title, as you've been mentioning. It's the fact that the whole point of his arc is to claim the title his family was denied, not the one his family made famous, like what Dusty Rhodes did with the NWA and WCW World Heavyweight Championship. It's to finally earn and bring home the gold to the Rhodes family, the thing that they would never actually manage to win. And that's why fans are booing, because they buy into Cody's pursuit of it.
Oh, I will say this, and before we wrap up, I just want to say this, that because this is so constantly unfolding, right? The news and the perspective changes basically every 2, 3 days. Because when he won the Rumble, we looked and we said, okay, he's going for Roman. We can still have Punk versus Seth. Then Punk got injured. And then Seth said, oh, why don't you consider fighting me, Cody? And then 2, 3 days later on SmackDown is when The Rock came out. And it looked like that was the direction they're heading in. And then we saw the We Want Cody signs and the hashtags being placed very, very clearly on camera. And you had the wrestlers cutting their promos and the commentary team acknowledging the We Want Cody and the Rocky Sucks chants. So that kind of also feeds into what's going on. We're acknowledging it. So where are we heading? And then you've got Rhodey tweeting, just trust me. Trust me. It's weird.
All I can say to WWE is fair play. They've made the most anticipated wrestling press conference of all time. And this includes the one right after AEW, the one following Brawlout, which was also arguably a very anticipated press conference. So fair play to them. We'll see what happens Friday, Australian time, Thursday, American time. Now, Thanasi, obviously this thing's a bit of a confusing and, depending on your perspective, dour situation. But I thought that we should look at the Royal Rumble selection gone right in the case of Bayley and Iyo. I thought this was done to perfection. I really enjoyed the segment with Bayley showing that she's actually picked up some Japanese and that it's showing a bit of agency on her part before this ultimate fight. And it gave off Batista Triple H vibes in its execution.
I'm going to give you my view. I don't 100% agree with you, but I'm going to see if I can justify it. What I didn't like very much was the giggling that Damage Control was doing. Like whenever Bayley would turn around and they would start to laugh, mostly because I wanted more aggression. Because when they started to beat the crap out of her, as soon as they walked behind her and she made her confrontation, that's what I wanted to see, right? That 3-on-1, that was great. I agree with you that Bayley showing that she can speak Japanese, she picked up some Japanese. She came out with a lead pipe and just started to unleash because she knew that they would turn on her. That stuff was awesome. Props to Tyson Kidd. He was the producer for this section. So well done to that one. I thought that was fantastic. I actually thought that they would drag this on a little bit longer, to be honest, because at the time, I thought that Cody was going to come out and just outright declare that he's going for Roman, so we could have extended a little bit more for the women's side. But nevertheless, it was a very, very good segment. Not quite at the level of Batista and Triple H, but you can't repeat history because then you're copy pasting. This one, though, if Bayley wins it, and I hope she does, it's really going to cement her. And frankly, with all this Rock and the misbooking of the men's world titles, I'd actually be in favor of Bayley and Iyo main eventing night one and getting what they deserve.
Well, hopefully we will get a satisfying conclusion to that story, at least now that we know it's been set in stone. As we approach the upcoming Elimination Chamber Premium Live event, which this year will be hosted in good old Perth, Australia, let us look back on the history as well as test our knowledge on the hellacious match type with a quiz. My co-host Thanasi has graciously stepped into the ring to answer my questions, but feel free to play along at home and let us know in the comments how many you got right. Thanasi, there's only one thing left for me to ask, and that is, are you ready?
I was born ready, but I've got a bit of a fear that something's going to go wrong. So let's see how we go.
Question number one. Who created the idea for the Elimination Chamber? And I'm looking for real life, not kayfabe.
Oh, I was going to say that the kayfabe answer is Eric Bischoff, because I don't actually know who created it in real life. I know Pat Patterson created the Royal Rumble, and he's a backstage personality. So maybe I'll throw out a weird one, kind of like throwing paint at a canvas and hoping that it turns into art. Let's go with Brian Gewirtz, head writer at the time.
That is incorrect. The correct answer was the cerebral assassin, Triple H. So Triple H actually created the concept for this idea, and he drew it on a napkin, a very provisional idea of what this match should be. But then he saw what they did with his design, and they made it a lot bigger and a lot harder and a lot badder, and it became something that he actually felt a bit afraid to admit was his own idea. And there's a very good moment in I believe, the Ruthless Aggression episode documentary covering this match type when Triple H is approached by Booker T. They're sitting down, and Booker T says to him, Thanasis,
It looks him dead in the eye, super serious. And this was in the Ruthless Aggression documentary. And he goes, we're not going to be monetized anyway, so somebody's going to get fucked up tonight. I can feel it. And he continues his gaze in Triple H's eyes to emphasize just how bad things are going to get. Can I also add on, right?
very
That
quickly.
while those two are having that moment, Rob Van Dam and HBK are sussing out the chamber to see what brilliant spot can I do, right? It's just a complete different perspective. Like they see that as a weapon that they're going to use for their performance.
Question number two. In what year did the Elimination Chamber match get its own pay-per-view? And what I mean by that is named after its own.
I believe that was 2010 when it replaced the No Way Out slot on the road to WrestleMania.
That is absolutely correct. Ever since 2010, the Elimination Chamber has always been on its own pay-per-view, quite impressively. Question number three. In what year was the first women's Elimination Chamber match?
It was the same year as their Royal Rumble, and I'm pretty sure it was the second year after it was brought back after a hiatus, which is the hiatus was 2016, and then they brought it back for 2017 when the men's were in it. So I'm going to go 2018.
100% correct. It was a Raw Women's Championship match, and it was won by Alexa Bliss. Question number four. Which wrestler has won the most Elimination Chamber matches?
I'm pretty sure that the number is 4, and I think it's Triple H.
Correct on both accounts, Thanasi. Well done. I'm not giving out bonus points, but you get my respect.
I can't remember all the years. I'm not going to go quite that granular.
Question number five. Which wrestlers, and I'll allow either one of these as correct, have statistically the worst record in Elimination Chamber matches?
So how is that calculated? Like they've entered the most times but have never won, or they've entered the most times, fewest eliminations?
All right, I'll give you a hint. I'm counting, firstly, they have never won and appeared the most times
Never won and appeared the most times.
out
Okay.
of those that have never
Yep.
won.
That gives me something to go off. I think I'm going to list, based on that ratio, maybe Kane as like 0 out of 4 or 5, maybe.
That is correct. He is one of the answers. Kane has 0 wins and 5 losses. The other wrestler has the exact same 0 wins, 5 losses, is Sheamus.
Sheamus, interesting.
Now, if we wanted to get very particular, we could have used eliminations as a tiebreaker, in which case Kane would be outright down because he's only gotten 2 eliminations compared to Sheamus's 5. But I
Oh,
thought let's not split hairs on this one. It was
yep.
already fine, a very particular stat as it was. Now, question number 6. Name one of the 2 wrestlers that have featured in the most Elimination Chamber matches.
I'm pretty sure that historically I have listed Triple H and The Undertaker in this spot. But I was looking at some of these stats a little while ago, and I think some of the other people that feature prominently because this you said most appearances, right?
That is correct.
I think I'm gonna go with because I think Randy Orton has a lot of appearances, just not a lot of wins. Um, let's go with Randy Orton as one and Triple H as the other.
Well, luckily for you, I only needed to hear one, and you got Randy Orton correct.
Haha.
Randy Orton is tied with Chris Jericho with 8 appearances at
Chris
Elimination Chamber matches.
Jericho. Okay.
Question number 7. Name the participants of the first Elimination Chamber match.
This is an easy one because I've watched this match so many times. It's one of I think I probably rate it as my favorite match ever to watch. The first Elimination Chamber match had Triple H walk in as essentially number one. He was met with his opponent to begin the match, Rob Van Dam. Then Chris Jericho came out, followed by Booker T. Kane was a botch. He should have been number 6, but he actually came out number 5. And then the eventual winner came out, number 6, Shawn Michaels.
Not only you got the participants correct, you got the order correct. Well done.
That's right.
Question number 8. To date, how many Elimination Chamber matches have there been? And I'm going to give you a leeway of 4.
How many have there been? Okay. I'm going to try go very, very quickly here and say we had one in 2002, 2003, 2005, 2006. I think 2007 had. I think 2007 had one. No, I think 2007 had two. And then 2008 had two. 2009 definitely had two. We're up to 10. 2010 had two. 11, 12, 13. 13. 14, I think maybe had one because the titles were unified at that point. 15 had one as well. And I think between 2000, we're at 21 now, right?
I believe
I,
so.
th-
I think
I think
20 or
between
21.
2000, I think between 2014, 2015, there was another tag one. So I'm gonna go up to 22. Then you've got 17, 2 in 18, I think 2 in 19, 2 in 20, 2 in 21. That gets us to 31.
Somewhere there.
And then 22 and 23. So I'm gonna guess 35.
You're just inside the margin. The correct
Oh,
answer is 32.
32.
But
Oh,
you're within, so I'm going to give it to you. Where? So this is question number 9 now, the penultimate question. Where and when was the Elimination Chamber match first held outside of America?
outside of America.
Where and when?
Um, okay. outside of continental United States, it was held in the first week of the new year at New Year's Revolution 2005 in Puerto Rico. However, I'm pretty sure does Puerto Rico count as America?
I'm not counting it because that was the
Okay,
answer.
perfect. Because otherwise I was going to jump to Saudi Arabia. I don't think it's happened in Canada.
What happened in Canada last year and the year before, it was
You're
Saudi
right.
Arabia
You're right.
because there
But
was the big
Saudi
Sami
Arabia
Zayn.
happened first.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a geography expert, so if anyone says technically I'm wrong, fair enough. And then finally, question number 10. List the 4 weapons included in the infamous December to Dismember ECW World Championship
Oh,
match.
Jesus Christ. I can't believe you put this question in here. I thought we were all trying to remove that event from our collective memories. Okay, I think Bobby Lashley brought in the table. Test, I think, brought in the chair. Um, I want to say kendo stick as well, or Singapore cane. And see, ECW had such a barbed wire vibe, but I don't think that that was included at that point, nor were tacks, not a ladder. Let's just go with something completely weird, like a lead pipe.
There was a table brought in by Bobby Lashley. There was a steel chair brought in by CM Punk.
Ah,
There was not a kendo stick or Singapore cane, and nor a lead pipe. The other 2 were a crowbar brought in by Test,
mm-hmm.
and you're so close, a barbed wire baseball bat brought in by the Big
Oh,
Show.
really? He
Yep,
did? No
yep.
way. As you can understand, I haven't seen this match in a very, very long time.
Well, Vanessa, you got 8 out of 10. That was pretty good.
That's not too bad.
And
I think I'm
admit,
happy with that.
yeah, and the last question was always going to be very hard. So,
Yeah.
so kudos to you. Let us know in the comments how you went, though.
Yeah, no, that was a good quiz. Thanks, Dimitri. And absolutely let us know in the comments what you thought of that quiz and what other Elimination Chamber themed quizzes or other quizzes you'd like us to do.
The Elimination Chamber is a very unique stipulation in wrestling. Similar to Hell in a Cell, its inception led to dramatic, pain-inducing battles of true wrestling icons that was a breath of fresh air. But over the years, we've been oversaturated with them, and its impact has been somewhat diluted. Nevertheless, when it is done right, the Elimination Chamber is truly a thrilling match type to watch. Our challenge, Thanas, is to agree upon what we believe are the top 5 favorite Elimination Chamber matches of all time for this channel. Are you ready for the challenge?
I'm ready and keen.
Well, we'll work our way up to number 1, but to start off with, were there any matches, Thanasi, that narrowly missed out on a place on your list?
Actually, yes, because I've got a subset of a few where I'm still struggling to position where I would put my number 4 and number 5. So I've got 2 that narrowly miss out, but I think I know where I'm going to go with it. So just narrowly missing out, because I was thinking about women's wrestling here, and I wanted to know which one was my favorite women's performance. And I think I opted for the story on my occasion. So the one that missed out is the women's tag from 2019, the one that crowned the inaugural champions, the Boss and Hug Connection, Sasha Banks and Bayley. You remember there was a visual from 2018 where Sasha was eliminated last, and she was quite upset, but she came back the next year with her best mate to win that. So that's the one that I put just narrowly on it. And another one that just misses out that really, really deserves, if we did a top 10, this would have made it, is 2019 Kofi Mania lead up, the one where Daniel Bryan retained by eliminating Cody last, and he had a fantastic performance. I think that that one was a really strong one from the last maybe 5 years or so that really deserves an important mention. But those are definitely my honorable mentions. What about you?
Well, I have two honorable mentions, and one is going to probably get me burned at the stake, but I don't care. I have so much fun with the ECW World Championship match at December to Dismember 2006. And it's one of those matches where, for better or worse, you remember a lot about it. Like even something as minute as CM Punk floundering around the ring like a fish because he's not in the exact right spot to cop the flying maneuver, I believe, from RVD. So I have a lot of fun with that, but even I can't, in good conscience, put it in my top five. The other match I have is probably more respected, and that is the WWE Championship match at Elimination Chamber 2012. This was the one that CM Punk successfully defended his title, and is one that I really do remember fondly. It was right in the middle of the real CM Punk peak as well.
I think that's fair enough. If I can actually just bring up that point, when you say December to December 2006, I can see your rationale, and not that I agree, but I can see the rationale because there's a lot of potential there. And the way that we saw that potential eventually tapped into was over 10 years later at the first War Games match in 2017, because the War Games stipulation is extremely similar to Elimination Chamber. It served as one of the inspirations. And that was when we saw weapons actually being introduced into War Games. At that point, it was by Sanity. They did it in the three-way. So I think I'll allow justification there as far as that there are historical links. Yes.
Let's now get officially into our list, and let's start off at your number five pick, Thanasio.
My number five pick, I said before that it was to do with women's wrestling, and I'm going to follow through with that. It is the number one contenders match for the Raw Women's Championship in 2020 when Shayna Baszler eliminated all five of her opponents. Now, the reason I remember this so fondly is because this is early 2020, and it was in the year 2019 where Shayna Baszler was wrapping up her monstrous stint in NXT, on and off with the NXT Women's Championship. Absolute beast. She came in here, just wrecked everyone, put everyone in their place, and cemented herself essentially as the one that was going to begin her monster run at WrestleMania. Eventually, that didn't work out, right? So, as far as the potential that there was there that was not tapped into, massive shame. But at least up until that moment, Shayna was so hot. She was just on an absolute monster run. And at that point, giving her all five eliminations was a cracker booking decision to say this is the woman who is going to take on the division and become world champion at WrestleMania.
Well, my number five pick is one that you've already mentioned, and it is the WWE Championship match at Elimination Chamber 2019, the beginning of Kofi Mania. And for me, it's as simple as this. There are very few Elimination Chamber matches where I can actually distinctly recall the build up to the match itself. And yet, with the Kofi one, I distinctly remember the gauntlet match that they had the night before to decide the order of entrance for that match. And I just remember that, along with Kofi's performance in the Elimination Chamber, just how excellent it was done, and the drama that was built into it, and the fact that Kofi even had to overcome people like Randy Orton, a historical rival for him. AJ Styles in the gauntlet match telling him, "You don't need to do this. You can give up now and save your energy." And Kofi fighting through it. And the eventual, and I always associate, like, the match itself is really quality and has lots of great moments. And it's arguably a highlight in modern Elimination Chambers. But even that, alongside the fact that eventually Kofi does win the WWE Championship against Daniel Bryan, I just felt like thematically it just fits so nicely. And as a rewatch, it's pleasing for that reason as well. Your number four, Thanasio.
My number four, yes, I was wondering if you were going to ask me. So My number four, which I did end up landing on here, it was, and it is, the 2005 New Year's Revolution match for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship. I'll just set the scene, the stipulation for this. There was in late 2004 some shenanigans on the late episodes of Raw, in which it was either, I think it was a triple threat where Edge, Chris Benoit, and Triple H were in a match, and the finish was a bit unclear. It was either Edge supposed to be winning or Benoit supposed to be winning, depending on the referee that saw it. And Eric Bischoff's genius decision was, I'm going to put the three of you, along with Randy Orton, Batista, and Chris Jericho, into the chamber to battle it out and decide who's going to be world champion. And I'm going to make Shawn Michaels the guest referee. Now, to contextualize why I find this my favorite, I first saw an Elimination Chamber match in the year 2007. So in that year, I watched the 2002 one. That was the first time I saw it. And up until that point, mind you, I was like 9 years old. Up until that point, there was that 2002 one, 2003, and this 2005. There'd only been 3 matches within the Elimination Chamber. So I look upon this very fondly with nostalgia because of how I look back on it. But I watched it back earlier this week, and let me tell you, the storytelling here is actually quite effective because you've got the narrative of Edge coming in there, storming up to Shawn Michaels in the preview, in the lead into the pay-per-view, saying, "Don't mess with me." And Shawn Michaels super kicks him. That gets Edge out. You've got Benoit's spot where he hits the headbutt off the top of the pod. You've got the storytelling with Triple H not really helping out Batista because he's so fatigued, but also he doesn't want Batista to win. But then, of course, Batista does help out Triple H. And in the end, you've got the babyface of Randy Orton, at that point still a babyface, trying to battle it out and re-win the World Championship. And then, of course, Triple H going on to face Batista at WrestleMania. So big storytelling in this one.
Well, my number 4 pick is all about the storytelling. The match itself has its moments, but I'd be lying if I said I remember it vividly. But I do remember the end spot vividly, and that is the World Heavyweight Championship match at Elimination Chamber 2010. And for those that might not remember, this is the one where Shawn Michaels, out of nowhere, emerged from inside the structure, super kicked The Undertaker, allowed Chris Jericho to get the win, and this sowed the seeds of the anger that eventually led to the retirement match of Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 26. And for me, it's all about that end moment. It's just, to me, I would argue it may actually be the most iconic visual within Elimination Chamber matches. And for that reason alone, it's my number 4 pick. Well, Thanasi, let's move on to your number 3.
Well, my number 3, and I think it might be the same as yours. So if it is, do interrupt me. We can share justifications for why we put it number 3. But mine is the WWE Championship match from No Way Out 2009. The reason for this is for a couple of reasons, actually, but I love the fact that they eliminated the incumbent world champion within the first 3 minutes, because as soon as you start your pay-per-view, you just go, Christ, anything can happen here.
And if you remember, the visual of Triple H laughing his head off
Yes.
as he's flubbering about in disbelief is so funny.
Yeah, babyface Triple H just sarcastic and having a laugh, a random laugh. That was really good. The match was slightly weaker, I guess, with the participation of Vladimir Kozlov, but we saw, some lovely spots like Undertaker hitting Big Show with a DDT on the outside, right onto the steel. There was Jeff Hardy with the swanton off the top of the pod, and then who can forget that brilliant mini match between Undertaker and Triple H as the final 2 participants. You had that spot, I think it was with Triple H had copped a tombstone, or actually, first he tried to deliver a tombstone himself, but then it got reversed into like a flip. He ate the tombstone from the Undertaker, and then with his like last breath, he just drops his heel onto the rope or something.
And that to me is the greatest ever stoppage of a pinfall via a boot. I think he timed it so perfectly. I rewatched it into anticipation for this video because this is on my list as well. I'll get into that a bit later. And I just love the timing of that to perfection.
Well, so yeah, so overall, Triple H did win. I mean, in hindsight, you think about it, if The Undertaker had won it, then he would have had the spinner belt. So that just wouldn't have been a good look. But Triple H got it. He got the win, of course, and then went on to main event WrestleMania, where he was upstaged by The Undertaker and his best friend, Shawn Michaels, as well. But over to you for your number three.
Well, my number three is a match that I suspect might be your number two, and that is the WWE Championship match at Elimination Chamber 2017. This was the reintroduction, so to speak, of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view or premium live event, as they like to call it now. And this was such a banger of a match. Like, I'm sorry, but like everything about it just fit perfectly. The AJ Styles was on true form in this match. John Cena really had a good showing. He even performed like a diving crossbody at one point during this match. AJ Styles scaling atop the cage. Keep in mind, this was a new, elimination chamber structure as well. So they had to make sure that it was memorable, and they really did a good job in it. And I just also love the crowning of Bray Wyatt as a world champion in the company. And it was a moment that everyone collectively applauded and was really appreciative of. Is there anything on this match that you would like to add, Thanasi? Is this on your list?
Well, this is a good segue because it's my number two.
Yeah.
And the reason I personally think that it was such a success and the reason it ranks so highly is for this pure reason that instead of treating it as the kind of match where you put two prominent wrestlers, either of whom can win, and then you fill the rest four with mid-carders, they filled this match with essentially their top six at the time. And that was the biggest success. You had your incumbent world champion, you had the guy that had recently just lost it, you had the one that was going to win it, and then you've got your also former world champion, now John Moxley, but then Dean Ambrose, plus Baron Corbin, who we thought was going to become a world champion, and The Miz as well. I mean, the only one missing there was, I think, Randy Orton, because he had won the Royal Rumble. So when you lock in all this star power into your elimination chamber, you're going to have a great match. And similar to the success that SmackDown was having around that time, in November of 2016 was when they filled up the 5-on-5 with bona fide stars. They kept this up for WrestleMania, sorry, not for WrestleMania, for Elimination Chamber as well, and they had this absolute banger of a match. Fantastic.
Well, Thanasia, we went reversed. So where your three and when your three was No Way Out 2009 WWE Championship match, for me that was number two. And for me, the reason I have it ahead is, like you said on many accounts, there are such visuals that I can recount from this match. The Jeff Hardy Swanton Bomb onto the Big Show following the superplex and pedigree to eliminate him. The fact that Undertaker just picked Jeff Hardy from out of nowhere into the tombstone, similar to how he picked up Triple H to do a tombstone, to eliminate him. Edge getting rolled up within the first 5 minutes. Like, honestly, the only thing in this match that's not memorable is Vladimir Kozlov, but in my opinion, it does nothing to hamper the match or hinder it in any way. So for me, it was really just a preference, and I think that is my second most watched Elimination Chamber match, barring my number one pick. And Thanasia, we might as well say it together because I think we're unanimously agreed on what we believe is the number one best Elimination Chamber match of all time, and that is
That is the 2002 World Heavyweight Championship first ever Elimination Chamber match. I think we're quite easily in agreement on this one. If you're
Absolutely.
watching this on the podcast and you've been following us all the way through, you'll notice that I've already said it's my favorite match of all time. And if you haven't already seen the podcast, go click on it because I also make reference to it in the quiz as well. So yes, like I said, Shawn Michaels is my favorite wrestler of all time. This is the only world championship that he held while I have been alive. Now, I was too young to realize it at the time, but when I watched the DVD in the year 2007, I didn't know the outcome. So when I saw that he was standing tall, proud, a very subdued celebration, just like a very satisfied with my work, but I've been through absolute hell to become world champion. I like that visual still resonates with me in my mind because it was not elation, it wasn't jumping up and down. It was okay, I've done it. Thank you so much, everybody, for your attention, right? He acknowledges the crowd. He's barely even lifting the title up into the air because he's been through absolute hell.
Exactly right. And I think the reason I love this match so much is that, in my opinion, it's really the only match that ever successfully sold the brutality of the structure. Other matches did their best, and they did show that it hurts like hell. But this one, the sounds of Triple H getting back body dropped onto the steel on the outside, getting raked against the steel chains, the blood that he had within like the first 5 minutes, and he had to put up with it for the rest of the match. Shawn Michaels being bloodied up later on, the catapult into the pod that breaks it. Like this match, it really did so much to tell you how badly this structure hurts the body.
I actually agree with you on this, Dimitri, because even in, say, 2003 and 2006, maybe not as much 2008, but partly, you really had these very, very bloody, very aggressive Elimination Chamber matches. And the pace was set in 2002 with the first one. They just went absolutely out of control. When WWE turned PG, it did affect how they could present the wrestlers in the Elimination Chamber. So this was like a golden period for absolutely showcasing the brutality of the match, as you said. And I mean, some fantastic spots in there, right? RVD with the frog splash off the top of the pod. Shawn Michaels with the elbow drop from the top of the pod as well. Kane just like smashing them through the bulletproof glass. Crazy stuff.
Even something as simple as Chris Jericho putting Triple H in the walls of Jericho and then getting super kicked by Shawn Michaels to eliminate him. Even something as simple as that looked it's just such a visual that I always remember.
Do you recall the RVD springboarding off in the outside area on top of the mesh? Triple H dodging, and then he clasps onto the railing and then climbs up like Spider-Man, right? And then drops off. That was awesome stuff to see. And I think really Triple H genuinely he's like the overt MVP here, right? Because he takes so many bumps on the steel, which is something he was doing even a couple years later in 2005 as well, right? He was genuinely the one taking the damage right on his own back. RVD, of course, standout. It's like everyone had their role, and I think you might allude to this. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Go on.
I was gonna say as well, something that is also so impressive is for those that remember the video package that plays in anticipation of this match right before it, it's one of those video packages where if you only watched the pay-per-view, you believe every person in this match can become the World Heavyweight Champion. Storyline wise, we knew it was either going to be Triple H retains or Shawn Michaels wins. But you watch that and the match sells it with what you said. It gives everyone a moment to actually shine. It feels like this actually is 6 legitimate contenders all vying for the title of a World Heavyweight Champion.
And this is what it has in common with 2017, right? Where you showcase your top 6. And the thing is, why I've put this at number 1 instead of putting 2017 as I put it in at number 2. The only reason these guys wanted to absolutely obliterate each other is for the right to be called World Heavyweight Champion. They walked in there and said, I'm going to go through, do whatever it takes because I want to be world champion. It's not even about going to WrestleMania. It's not about being a number one contender and then eventually getting your your spot at the showcase of the Immortals. No, 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 no. This is just about that world title, and that made the world title look absolutely just so special, right? Just made it look so prestigious, so important to have. And when you put your top six in there, it makes them look fantastic.
Well, Thanasi, we're unanimously agreed on what our number one pick is. We've got a little bit of admin to fix up, though, with the others. Now, number 4 and 5, by virtue of both of us putting a unique number 4 matches, we're going to have to choose to distinguish one of those as number 5 and number 4. And for the sheer fact that my match is more of the way it ends is great, rather than your take of the match itself is sort of beautifully, I'm going to put the 2010 World Heavyweight Championship match at number 5, and I'm going to put the 2005 World Heavyweight Championship match at News Revolution number 4. Is that sufficient?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, beautiful. Now we need to choose very quickly between the 2009 WWE Championship match and the 2017 WWE Championship match. What's our number 3 and number 2? I'm willing to put the 2017 one at number 2 because that reinvigorated the format. Whereas 2009 was just, it was a good addition at the time. Good, it was a very good addition at the time of what already felt like a popular type of match, but 2017 gave it life again. So I'm willing to put that number 2 for that reason as well. Are you comfortable with that?
I would also add on that because the 2009 one partially has value from the moment that followed later on in the night, where Edge entered himself into the World Heavyweight Championship as well. That kind of it's relying a little bit on the later story. So I think the 2017 one does stand on its own merit.
Okay, well, in that case, our final list for our top 5 favorite Elimination Chamber matches of all time. Number 5, the World Heavyweight Championship match at Elimination Chamber 2010. Number 4, the World Heavyweight Championship match at New Year's Revolution in 2005. Number 3, the WWE Championship match at No Way Out 2009. Number 2, the WWE Championship match at Elimination Chamber 2017. And finally, number 1, and in my opinion, it will never be topped, the World Heavyweight Championship match at Survivor Series 2002. Let us know in the comments if we made a complete stuff up of this list or if we made it perfect. And let's enjoy the Elimination Chamber coming up. There is no denying that the last decade has truly been the era of Roman Reigns. And this is best typified by the fact that the Tribal Chief has been part of 7 main events of the last 9 WrestleManias. And he seemingly is well on his way to an 8th at this year's Showcase of the Immortals. Before we make it to WrestleMania 40, let us reflect on the main events that have been and see how many of them have been classics that will be remembered for decades to come for their greatness, and how many have been stinking piles of crap that will forever be a stain on Roman Reigns' resume. On that note, Thanasi, would you care to join me in assessing each of the big dogs' WrestleMania main events?
Well, this is really awesome. It's the first tier list of the channel, so let's get right into it.
Excellent. Before we begin, let us list the tiers that we have. At the top, we have God Mode, very appropriate. Right below that is the very commendable Yes, My Tribal Chief, in honor of the wise man, Paul Heyman. The tier below that is It's Not a Good Match, It's Not a Bad Match, It's the Match, which essentially just means it exists.
Meh.
And finally, at the bottom, we have a can of dog food, which is about as pleasant as a steaming dog crap. We'll be doing this chronologically, and so to start off with, we have Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31.
If I could start the comment on this one, I think we have to understand some of the parameters here. Can we treat this as a special main event for the fact that it had the most unique finish ever? Or are we measuring this based on Roman Reigns' participation and his performance in the match?
I'm taking the matches collectively in its entirety. So for me, just to add on, I believe WrestleMania 31 fits very well into the yes, my tribal chief category because it was the first edition of these two together. So it had that element of novelty. But especially if we're talking about novelty, it had, in my opinion, the greatest finish of all time at WrestleMania. So ingenious, so excellent in having Seth Rollins cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase to actually win the WWE Championship. So for me, I think it fits perfectly into just yes, my tribal chief. What do you think?
I think that's right because if it didn't have that finish, I probably would have said put it into the dog food. But I think with that finish, we can promote it up to yes, my tribal chief.
All right, beautiful. The next main event we have is Roman Reigns versus Triple H at WrestleMania 32. And for me, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because I rewatched every single one of these main events in anticipation of this video. And when I was watching this, the one thing that really stuck to me is it just is boring. Nothing really like noteworthy happens until Roman spears Stephanie McMahon, which got a massive pop, by the way. Even
Oh,
yeah, it's so good. But it was because this was a match where no one actually cared about either of them winning. Like they didn't want Roman to win, but they also didn't really want Triple H to continue winning because the authority was quite hated at this time as well.
look,
And
can I just say this, that this is essentially a copy paste of what had happened 10 years earlier, where it was the coronation of a corporate guy that Vince loved versus Triple H. But at least in 2006, Triple H was much more capable of wrestling, and the bout with Cena actually could produce something, right? It wasn't a rain of booze in the same way that this one was like absolutely ridiculous. Like the crowd didn't want it, people were leaving. So my personal instinct is to put this in the bottom in the can of dog food.
I'm more than happy to oblige. And it's a shame,
It
but
is.
I think it does belong there. Next up, we have Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 33. And look, this match has a really bad reputation, and quite frankly, I'm not going to do anything to try and improve it. This is arguably Undertaker at his worst, and Roman Reigns as well. Like he really tries to carry it and make something of it, but it just I don't think he's skilled enough of a wrestler to have pulled it off. That's the harsh truth. And this is the match where this is the first Roman match where he's actually supposed to be the one booed as well. Not that they're presenting him as a heel, but that you can't get people to cheer for you against the Undertaker. Even Cena the year later, when he faced the Undertaker, was getting booed because it's just that's the aura of the Undertaker. But even JR on commentary can't save this, and he was, I must say, such it was such a blessing to hear his voice again when you have to hear Michael Cole, JBL, JR, all the sorry, not JR, Jerry Lawler. JR is the one positive. But for me, if like it's really sad, I really do feel like this also belongs in the can of dog food.
I was going to say maybe not good, not bad, but I think I'm fine to put it in can of dog food for now, and we can reevaluate later. But if I can just raise this point that this match should not have been in the main event. You had two already world title matches that were on the card, one of which should not have been a world title match. The real main event on this card should have been Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho in the main event for the Universal title. That one should have been the one. But I think the fact that it got promoted so high was because it was going to be portrayed as The Undertaker's last match, his retirement match. And then he ended up coming back the next year. So there's a lot of like devaluation and inconsistency here with hindsight inconsistency that probably pushes it quite down as far as its rating.
The next match we've got is Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 34. And for my money, this completes a hat trick of disappointing, terrible Roman Reigns WrestleMania main events. I think this might actually be the worst because at this point, fans were so against Brock Lesnar as being an absentee champion, and they hated Roman just as much just because he was shoved down our throats. And people just wanted it to be a just give him the title and let's be done with it. And they didn't even give the fans that. And I just remember everyone hated this. And this was on top of what felt like a disappointing WrestleMania that had a lot of positivity and a lot of hype going into it. But when AJ Styles disappointingly beat Shinsuke, for a lot of people, that was disappointing. When Asuka lost to Charlotte Flair,
Oh
and then you
God.
have this close the show, it just felt like you're not doing any progression to your storylines, and not you're not establishing anyone new in the process. So I think this fittingly is can of dog food as well.
I agree. It's can of dog food. I remember that I was passionately watching this entire card on the Monday. Like I was in like second year uni, I think, at that point. And on the Monday, I was watching the whole card. And then as soon as this main event came on, I just kind of skipped to the end and was like, what the hell? Okay, so like, what are we doing here? We're expecting him to be coronated, and then we got this crap. So can of dog food, please.
Well, after that, we have what I feel is actually one of the classics for Roman Reigns, and that is Roman Reigns versus Edge versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 37, Night 2. And for me, just straight off the bat, it 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 just is really fast paced. It's exciting. The dynamic between the three just works. There's heaps of really nice spots, but one that I really want to put a spotlight on is when Edge has Reigns in the crossface, and then Daniel Bryan joins in with the yes lock, and then the two are headbutting each other to try and get the other off the other to actually complete the submission win. And even I'll say this in hindsight, the visual of Roman actually stacking the two, even if we disagree with the visual of him stacking the two to get the win in the end, really did cement him as a boss. And I just think that Edge and Daniel Bryan carry Roman Reigns to a spectacular match.
I agree with everything that you said, especially that last point. The one thing I disagree with is he didn't look like a boss. He looked like a god. And it was around this time that God mode is exactly what was happening to the bloke. This was, I think, the first instance of many where the fact that he won this match was like, damn, okay, they're going full serious with this bloke. Like, it would have been awesome to have Edge kind of like come back, win the Universal title. At that point, it was like well less than 1,000 days of a reign, right? So we thought easily he could have lost it at Mania, and it would have been still, like a big deal and like a great deal of celebration. But as soon as he stacked them, pinned them, you just think, man, this guy's the real deal now.
Well, then are we in agreement that this goes into God mode?
37 goes into God mode.
Fantastic. Well, the match after that I felt was a lot lower in quality. I'll just say that right off the bat, and that is Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar, WrestleMania 38, the third Mania main event between these two. And I'll say this one actually had the most positive crowd reaction in the sense everyone was on board Brock Lesnar as he was trying to win, and they were booing Roman Reigns, and that was what was supposed to happen. So it was correct. But I think watching the match back uh it doesn't help because with hindsight it looks fantastic. But we need to remember in the moment, people were really concerned that Roman Reigns would drop the title after so many days to Brock Lesnar and it would feel like it was for nothing, him holding it for more than a year. So him getting the win, it was like it needed to happen. It wasn't like a satisfying conclusion. It was a necessary conclusion. And I think the match itself is really solid, but I also think that in some ways it's the least memorable of the hat tricks because the first one has the heist of the century. The second one is so vilified. I think this one fits perfectly in just it was a serviceable match.
I think, can I just offer this perspective on this one that Roman Reigns at this point, prior to this match, he was still representing with the Universal title. He was showing up on house shows, showing up on TV. So he was the guy that we loved to boo, sometimes to the point that we would cheer him because he was performing this heel gimmick so well. It wasn't until after that that things went to crap. But at least up until here, this did feel like the very next step in the evolution of his character. Where would you like to put it?
I think we should put it in. It's not a bad match. It's not a good match. It's just the match.
I agree. I think I'm happy with that.
All right. Well, that takes us into probably this might actually be the most controversial
Of course
match.
it is.
Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 39. And I'm gonna say this, outcome aside, I think this is a classic. And I rewatched it, and you know what? You still watch the match and you still ride the emotional highs. It's still a roller coaster. And I just think that even in defeat, Cody Rhodes came out of this match still looking like he belonged. And I think that there's a testament to that take as well, given that we're a year later and we are actively rooting for Cody to finally finish the story. And we haven't lost faith in him since then. It feels like he's actually gotten more popular. It feels like his stardom has actually gone even higher than what it was, if that was even possible. And I just think that there are really nice moments. The storyline they tell with the interference element is really satisfying when Solo gets ejected, and then soul crushing when he comes back out of nowhere to smell and spike him at the end, allowing Roman to get leverage back, spear him for the eventual win. The whole aspect of the Usos being fought off by Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, brilliant. Uh, Even something as simple as Cody fighting out of the guillotine choke, not reaching the rope, actually fighting out of it is just such excellent storytelling and just really does a lot for him. I think you might disagree with me. We might need to balance it out, but I actually think this does belong in God mode.
Well, look, but before I tell you where I think it should go, what I think holds this back is the fact that it is the booking decision itself, right? Like everything in the story building up to the finish, all the teasers, all the storylines, it just felt that this was the right time for Cody to become champion because Roman had become that which he hated, and that was an absentee champion. As I was saying before, WrestleMania 38, leading up until that, he was not an absentee champion. He was still on house shows. He was still around. It was in that year between 2022 WrestleMania and 2023 that he started to basically become Brock Lesnar. So I think that's what holds this back the most because it was at that point where we said, "Oh, come on, like maybe that wasn't the right call." I was livid. I thought they were working us.
How
Go on.
far back does that hold it for you, though? Does it take it down categories or tiers for you?
I think it does take it down one tier.
So you would put it in
I would put
Yes,
it
My
in
Tribal
yes,
Chief.
I would put it in yes, my tribal chief.
All right. Well, in that case, I will acquiesce to your request to bring it down to Yes, My Tribal Chief, and we'll put it at the top of that tier. I think it's fair to say.
Yep, I agree with that.
And I think that as it pertains to the can of dog food category,
Oh,
I think we should put Roman Brock 34 right at the bottom because
yes,
no one was happy. No one was pleased. It was completely terrible.
I agree with that.
I would put Roman Triple H after that purely because it was another match that no one really liked. And at least with Roman Taker, at least during the match, that there was things to look forward to. When Taker hit a punch, you cared. So I think like the fact of like watching it back, at least you feel like, oh, but I am rooting for this person to win. I actually care about them. That
That's
gives
right.
it that little bit of a bump ahead of Roman Triple H. Is that fair enough?
Roman Triple H was basically an instance of you both suck.
Okay,
So
well,
does that
that's
mean do you potentially want to promote WrestleMania 33 up to not good, not bad, but just the match? Or are you happy to have it in the dog food can category?
uh I'm happy to promote it. We'll
Okay, let's
put it at the
promote it
bottom of
to the
that list.
bottom.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we still have the WrestleMania 38 Roman Brock ahead of it in that category. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Well, then I say that's our final list. People in the comments, let us know what you think of this tier list. Did we stuff it up or is it perfect? Let us know. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's edition of the Audible Finish. Next week, we'll hopefully have an update to discuss regarding the messy situation of WrestleMania 40's World Championship matches. Every week that passes by is seemingly bringing lots of intrigue as to what's going to happen at this year's showcase of the Immortals. So be sure to tune in. Thanasi, great to have your company as always.
Thank you for having me. It was a fantastic episode. See everyone next week.
Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Until next time, we hope everything you do is just too sweet.